around him.
How did that affect your perspective about the election when Attorney General Barr made that statement?
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
Okay, so here's how the former president reacted today on his social network, quoting now, "Ivanka Trump was not involved in looking at or studying election results. She had long since checked out and was, in my opinion, only trying to be respectful to Bill Barr and his position as Attorney General. Parenthetically, he sucked. Call it Ivanka meets bus undercarriage." I want to bring in CNN's Caitlin Collins for the perspective she gained from her extensive tour of duty covering the Trump White House. Caitlin, even by Trump standards, does it surprise you that the former president was unable to resist throwing shade at his own daughter?
I think it's a yes and no, because, of course, this is a tactic we've seen the former president employ so many times with so many people that were certainly central to his orbit. Secretaries of State, chiefs of staff, his own attorneys that had worked for him for decades. But to see him do it with his own daughter and to put that space in between the two of them, the way he is doing so today after that hearing, after seeing her testimony, which was, kind of one of the most riveting parts of the entire hearing, seeing his own daughter talk about how she did not believe his election lies and she took the Attorney General at his word. And of course, that was a time when the relationship between former President Trump and then Attorney General Bill Barr had really soured because he wouldn't back up his claims, even if he wasn't being as public about that as he is now, acting as he was. It's still notable to see the former president coming out and trying to dismiss his own daughter's testimony about what was happening inside the White House by arguing that she was checked out. And I should remind people, she testified for about 8 hours. So the idea that this is the end of the testimony we're going to see from his daughter is very unlikely.
Yeah, it does leave the question, is there more there? How does what Ivanka Trump told the committee, that she accepted Bill Barr saying there was no widespread election fraud, square with what she was actually doing and saying in the days and weeks after the election?
Well, we've seen her messages where she was urging people to keep up the fight, telling people to keep fighting back against the fact that it was becoming clearer and clearer by the day that President Trump had not won the election. But this idea that she was checked out and she wasn't really involved also doesn't line up with our own reporting, because obviously she was there until the end. You saw her exiting the White House with former President Trump the day of President Biden's inauguration. But Benny Thompson, who is the chairman of the January 6th committee, was just talking about the proof that they have of what she actually knew about what was expected to happen on January 6th.
We have proof about Ivanka's participation with her daddy on a regular basis about what was going on. On January 6th, she was there in the White House. And so what or who better could have access to what was going on than one's own daughter? And for him to somehow insinuate that his daughter had checked out is disingenuous on his part as a father. Daughters normally know what their fathers are doing, especially when there's a close relationship.
Here we go.
And it certainly was a close relationship, still is a close relationship. The day of January 6th, there were very few people, John, who wanted to go into the Oval Office and speak with Trump that day. It was something that we had heard in real time as it was going on. A lot of people were avoiding the Oval Office, but the people who were going in, including Ivanka, were trying to get former President Trump to call off his supporters, to tell them to go home, to leave the Capitol. She was someone who had gone into the Oval Office many times. Keith Kellogg, who was Pence's national security advisor, testified to the committee about how tenacious she was going in there and talking to her father. So the idea that she wasn't involved or she wasn't really closely related to what was going on that day and the response that was coming out of the White House is obviously just divorced from reality. And I should note, she went and testified for about 8 hours to this committee, and Trump told the Washington Post he basically gave Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner his blessing to go in there. They did not have to do so under subpoena. They did not want to end up in a situation that Steve Bannon or a Peter Navarro has ended up in. And so they went in there willingly and testified, and it was for hours. And I think that's what's a really notable aspect of seeing Trump come out and dismiss her and try to put some distance between her is surprising, but not really that shocking, given, of course, it's something he's done before. It does speak to the levels that he'll go to try to explain away what was happening on that day, John.
And again, as you say, Caitlin, it begs the question, what else did she say? And also maybe for future discussion, what's the nature of her current relationship with her father? Caitlin Collins, thank you so much for being with us. More now on the larger what's next questions. For that, we're joined by CNN legal analyst Norm Eisen. He served as special counsel in the first Trump impeachment, as White House ethics czar in the Obama administration, before that as ambassador to the Czech Republic. Also CNN contributor and former Watergate hearing star witness John Dean. John, I want to start with you. Obviously, these hearings are not a court of law, but if you are Attorney General Merrick Garland tonight and you're processing what you've seen and what you expect to see next week, what's going through your mind?
You're watching these hearings very closely. To use the Watergate analogy, Archibald Cox, by this time, had taken place or become the special prosecutor when the hearings started, and he tried to stop the hearings. He didn't want them televised for fear they would result in corrupting the trials or not being able to get a good jury. So attorneys general and prosecutors watch these very closely for what they can have implications on any investigation or later trial or indictment that they might bring. So they're paying very close attention.
So, Norm, according to CNN's reporting, Justice Department officials were watching for what kind of possible crimes the committee believes it has uncovered. What evidence does Attorney General Garland need for possible prosecutions, in your opinion? And what does it seem that the committee has and doesn't have so far?
John, thanks for having me back, and always wonderful to be on with the other John. I think we need to ask the